There is a moment, a specific, quiet, almost invisible moment where something shifts, where you stop shrinking, where you stop over-explaining and chasing and making yourself smaller to fit inside the emotional space they were willing to offer, where you simply stop. Not dramatically, not with a speech. You just stop being available in the way you used to be. And that is when the avoidant's entire dynamic with you changes. Not because you played a game, not because you followed a strategy, but because self-respect, when it is real, is one of the only things that genuinely disrupts the avoidant's sense of control. And control, whether they are conscious of it or not, is the entire foundation of how they operate in relationships. Here is what you need to understand about the avoidant ego. It is not arrogance in the traditional sense. It is not loud or boastful. It is quieter than that, and more dangerous because of it. The avoidant ego operates on the assumption that they can have access to you without accountability, that you will remain emotionally available while they remain emotionally guarded, that the connection stays intact on their terms, at their pace, within the boundaries they set, without ever having to name them. And for a long time, that assumption held, because you loved them, because you were patient, because every time they pulled away, you found a way to pull yourself back together and still be there when they returned. Your consistency became the thing their ego quietly relied on. So when that changes, when you stop being the person who is always there, always adjusting, always finding a way to stay soft towards someone who kept going hard to reach, something in them destabilizes. And the first thing that destabilization looks like is not what you would expect. It does not look like an immediate awakening. It does not look like them rushing toward you with sudden emotional clarity. It looks like ego protection first. It looks like them becoming slightly colder, more dismissive, maybe even more distant than before. Because the ego's first response to a perceived threat is not vulnerability, it is armor. They will act unbothered. They will perform indifference so convincingly that you will second-guess everything. You will wonder if you were wrong to pull back. You will wonder if they ever cared at all. That performance is the answer. Genuinely unbothered people do not perform indifference. They simply are indifferent. The performance is the tell. Underneath that armor, something else is happening. For the first time, possibly in the entire relationship, the avoidant is confronted with the reality that you are not guaranteed. That the access they had, emotional, physical, psychological, is not a given. That you are a person with limits, with standards, with a self that exists independently of their needs. And that self just made itself visible in a way they cannot dismiss. This is deeply uncomfortable for an avoidant, not because they are malicious, but because their attachment system was never built to handle this particular feeling. They are used to being the one who holds distance. They are used to being the one in control of how close things get. When you reclaim that control for yourself, the dynamic they built the entire relationship on collapses. What happens next depends entirely on where the avoidant is in their own self-awareness. Some of them reach. They come back warmer, more attentive, more present. They say the things they withheld. They show up in the ways they previously avoided. But, and this is the part that requires your absolute honesty with yourself, that reaching is not always growth. Sometimes it is ego retrieval. Sometimes it is the discomfort of losing access, dressed up as emotional progress. The difference is in whether the behaviour sustains itself over time or dissolves the moment they feel secure in your attention again. Real growth looks like consistency after the discomfort, not just during it. And here is the deepest thing about this entire dynamic. Your self-respect was never a tactic. The moment it becomes one, it stops being self-respect and starts being a performance of its own. What actually disrupts the avoidant ego is not the appearance of not caring. It is the genuine reality of someone who has decided that their own peace matters more than managing someone else's emotional unavailability. That decision does not need to be announced. It does not need to be explained. It radiates. And an avoidant, who is exquisitely attuned to emotional energy, feels it immediately. You stopped being someone they could take for granted, and that specific shift lives in them longer than anything you could have ever said.